So today we are going to be looking at funding and funding streams, and also some best practice stuff as well. Some of this information you might already know, and some of you might even have applied for funding and have some useful anecdotal points to make as well, which you would always be useful. So, why funding? So, funding opportunities support, develop, and build your career. So they're really essentially, any kind of income, particularly as an artist, is money is hard to get hold of, and funding allows you to it buys you time essentially, which I think is kind of one of the things we don't talk about a lot. The work practice we do takes a lot of time, and when we're spending time on our music that we're kind of preparing to take out or rehearsing, we're not getting paid for that. That is time that essentially where we're not earning, and that's if you're a freelance musician or a freelance creative, then that's difficult. So it essentially pays for that time. It allows you that freedom. So traditional funding for artists through record labels and publishers or management. So that was traditionally where money came from the music industry, and those streams are still available. And it's not that it's got harder to get; it's always been difficult to get hold of that money. But there is funding if you sign the right record deal, or if you sign with a publishing company. Um, the issue with that is obviously with any signing any deal is that you're essentially there is a kind of trade-off, which is essentially that you are then tied into a contract, which that isn't always bad. And, I think we need to be careful not to be binary about things. But at the same time, you are going to give up some of your freedoms to allow to access that funding. So there's national and local funders can support projects and careers development, and some of those we're going to go through. And talent development programs can support you to develop and grow your music and your music business. And so funding and talent development, they sometimes come hand in hand. So, for example, Launchpad do funding, but they also do things like this, which is talent development, giving people skills and workshops, and hoping giving them some useful information. So, we're going to kind of cover some of these today. As always, there's information on websites, so please make sure that I always say that these things are kind of starter packs. They're like a good thing to get you kind of just to kind of so you know what's out there. I this information I've got here is kind of as of today, essentially. So I haven't there isn't just stuff. So I have sort of looked in to make sure kind of I know when funding is happening. It's a bit of a funny time funding right now because we're coming to the end of the year, and funding might sometimes they tend to sort of round off funding ops at this time of the year. That isn't a lot of them are will kind of reopen probably early next year. Some of them are just ongoing as well, but I will highlight them when I can. All right, so success often depends on timing and project fit. So what this is going to sound really obvious, but when you're applying for funding, it's about whether or not it fits the criteria of the funders. So a lot of funders they will have an agenda, not in a bad way, just they will have a criteria of what they want to either the kind of people or projects they want to fund. Um, or the kind of communities they're trying to reach. So, and that can be, so it means that sometimes you either don't fit, or you may have to do some work on your own project if you want to work with that funder. Competition for funds can often have a big impact. I will go into this later, but it is uh, particularly at the moment, it's very competitive in some areas to get funding. That isn't to say you shouldn't try, because I would just to say that I've had some funding recently. So I've just finished an Arts Council round of funding, which is brilliant. And in fact, I'm about to work on a project that has just been ACE funded as well. So ACE being Arts Council England, I should say. So it is possible, and I think sometimes we're very guilty of going, "There's no funding, there's no point, we shouldn't bother." It's absolutely, we should bother. It is time consuming, but it is worth doing. You can have a great project, but if timing doesn't work or the objectives don't align with the funder's priorities, so that is absolutely it. And if you have a plan, you should be able to adapt it to different applications. So it says risk management here. Risk management basically, funders, if they think that you're a risk, if your plan isn't well thought out, they're giving, a lot of them are giving away public money. This is money that has been raised from taxpayers, or it's money that have come through things like the lottery. But obviously, so there's big competition for that. So they want to make sure that when they're giving out money, they're giving it to something that they know is going to fill the criteria and of the funding stream, and also that money isn't going to get wasted. That it's going to be on something good. Now that's very difficult to sell, but there is ways and means. So lots of funders now offer one-to-ones or webinars for funding. So this is quite typical, and a lot of them will have kind of like guides on how to apply. Some of them are more user-friendly than others, and some funders are more user-friendly than others, I should say as well. And I'm kind of happy to kind of say who as well, even though this has been recorded, because I think it's useful feedback for the funders. So yeah. So national funders help musicians, PRS Foundation and Youth Music, and Arts Council England. So we're going to kind of look at those national funders. I'm going to highlight some of the kind of funding that's on offer and what that might look like. So I hope this is useful for some of you. So the PRS Foundation is kind of I'd argue the kind of largest music kind of funding body, certainly for people who are wanting to work commercially in music. They understand that kind of that's what their sort of remit is, to help sort of people build their careers. So they've previously funded Little Sims, Arlo Parks, Ghost Poet, Public Service, Broadcasting years and years. So these are artists who've gone on to have really good careers. And touring, obviously Little Sims right now is kind of going full international at the moment, quite right, because she's amazing. Go Little Sims. So PRS have multiple funding pots, each with different criteria, and these include the Open Fund, the PPL Momentum Hitmaking Fund, Women Make Music Composers Fund, Early Careers Fund, International Showcase Fund, and Early Careers Promoters Fund as well. So if you're looking to get into promoting as well, so a lot of kind of pots to go for. And there's actually more than that as well, and I've put the details there. But if you essentially go to prsfoundation.com, you can find out all the information there, and also they've also got kind of dates about when pots are opening and closing dates as well. So it'll give you some really clear information. But I'm just going to highlight a couple that I think might be useful. So the Open Music Fund, if grants up to £5,000. Right now that isn't open; it's just shut in September, but it is going to be. I think it's looking to reopen again. By looks of it, it runs twice yearly, in March, and so basically in the spring and in the autumn. So it's worth probably just kind of keeping an eye on that. The Open Fund for Music Creators supports development of music creators of all genres and backgrounds at different stages of their career, judged on the quality of the music and how you'll reach your audience. So successful artists include Young Fathers, who are amazing, Aphrodisia, who I don't know, Jasdeep Singh, and Ruth Lyon. So this is very much built on people who are sort of looking to kind of widen their audience and build their audience, and kind of are sort of they're probably now are starting to develop maybe sort of small body work. They're developing an audience. They've set up they're starting to develop and maybe social media following as well, and all those things. So they're kind of at that point where they're kind of looking to where investment of £5,000 will be really useful, and again, with these funds, it's kind of looking about how you would spend that. PRS Foundation, so the PPL Momentum Fund, so that's 5 to 15,000, and the next deadline for that is very soon. So that's open at the moment, is the 27th of October. So judged on whether funding will have a sizable impact on an artist's career, plus whether an artist has a team in place to take advantage. And you can see the kind of people who've had that funding. So essentially, this is an artist who maybe has management, he's starting to build a team around them. Is basically working with other stakeholders outside themselves, and hopefully that money will then be used to invest in a tour or studio time or kind of however that might be. But so, and these are really useful to people, kind of people to look at. So like Maskins, definitely, they were at a point when they had management, and then they went on to be signed to Lab Records. So it's really, yeah, it's kind of not, it's not beginning stage. It's kind of that mid stage where you're starting to kind of, I suppose, interact with the wider business community in music. You may be sort of playing some smaller festivals like, or sort of fringe festivals. So maybe the Great Escape. You sort of starting to get on the radars of national or other promoters in other cities. Any questions so far? Cool. Um, so this is Women Make Music. So this is twice yearly, and of grants up to £5,000. This is for women, trans and non-binary artists, songwriters, creators at different stages of their career. So this isn't necessarily about kind of where you are, but obviously specific for people who are women or people who identify as women, and to help with their career and push forward. And it's really great to see they're also supporting trans and non-binary artists as well in that, because obviously politically there kind of a lot of pressure on that to kind of not to be funding them. So it's really great to see the PRS are standing by that. Um, Help Me Musicians UK it's basically kind of a big charity, and basically helps musicians in from beginning to end of their careers, and has worked a lot in kind of helping support artists with mental health issues as well, or maybe have had other substance abuse issues, or have somehow had things happen to their career which have enabled them to kind of continue. And there's always been, they've always, that's kind of where this has been built from. But they now have other funding pots as well. So they have the Mobo Help Musicians Fund for up to 3,000 to help support releases. So this is absolutely about kind of releasing music, but the music must be of Black origin. Then the next level of up to 3,000, and then fast track, which is a quick £500 if it needs some investment. It is worth saying that for next level, not for the Mobo fund, but for fast track and next level, you need to have been working as a musician for 2 years, and 40% of your income must come from being a musician. So it is for people who are, really sort of trying to kind of make a living from music. So fast track is about kind of people who might be struggling with funds. Obviously 3,000 is more significant, is looking to kind of invest in whatever that might be to help their career. But it is for the kind of, it isn't for the beginner musician, it's for people who are looking to build who are building a career, and are sort of starting to build an income stream from music. So 40% is quite large. And but I think they're trying to kind of pitch it at people who aren't like right at the start. Youth Music is a national charity supporting children and young people of 0 to 25. So they have numerous resources about how to build a career, how to be an artist management, create a music brand, beginner's guide to hosting great virtual festivals. They're sort of really sort of, and they're really sort of, youth music have always been like really at the forefront of trying to build uh, sustainable sort of programs of music for young people. And I've worked on projects that have been youth music funded, and they've always been really great. Like they've always been very hands-on as well as a charity. So the Youth Music Next Gen Fund opens on the 9th of January 2026, and grants up to 3,000 for ideas to make happen. So this is this is for 18 to 25 year olds or 18 to 30-year-olds. If someone identifies as D, deaf, disabled, or neurodivergent. So this can include creative and artistic, new enterprise, and platform to support talents. Other funds are available as well to help support young people in music. So they also fund people who are looking to set up projects to support young people. So if you're someone who actually, maybe looking to set up a program where you're going to create a program for young people, this is the place to go. So you're wanting to maybe run production workshops or start a ukulele band or a choir, or and bearing in mind these are really valid income streams for musicians as well. So it might be something you've not considered, but it's actually worth considering. I know quite a lot of musicians, a lot of my friends who are really good musicians, they run choirs, or they run like community groups, and as we know, the kind of resources for young musicians within schools, particularly, are getting squeezed. The kind of teaching of the arts in school has been, absolutely devalued. A lot of schools don't even offer GCSE music or GCSE drama or dance. Um, uh, so I've got a C in GCSE dance. Fact. Um, uh, sorry, that was pointless. But things were getting quite serious. But there are, but uh, so these programs, if you're thinking about setting a program, they're incredibly useful and they are wanted, and needed as well. So really worth looking at those kind of funding. So the Arts Council, so project grants. Project grants developing your creative practice, commonly known as DYCPs. They support individuals and organisations with public funding and donations from the National Lottery to deliver their Let's Create strategy. I have thoughts. This is I have thoughts. I have notes, is what I will say. To make sure everyone's creativity is given a chance to flourish, and we'll all have access to a remarkable range of high quality cultural experiences. It's very nice. Arts counselling is incredibly important. Like, it's incredibly important. It's massively underfunded, and in fact, when the Tory government got in 2010, the arts was actually had the biggest overall cuts to any sector than any other sector. There was more cuts per capita for the arts, because essentially the arts are kind of invisible, and everyone's kind of obviously worrying about the NHS, and quite rightly, in education. But actually, what they could do is quietly slice 60% of arts funding in one fell swoop, which they did. So Arts Council England are very, very stretched, but they are really hugely necessary. So let's look at these. So for project grants for projects. Um, uh, so these can be useful for touring projects or interactive live events, projects, installation. So just kind of what I did, and so I wrote a hip hop musical called 93 Till Infinity, which was about young people who were into hip hop in the 1990s, sort of, but they're our age now. So essentially, it was sort of semi-autobiographical about me being into hip, and it's kind of funny because obviously I'm a white middle class kid from Leeds, been into a music that's predominantly made by uh, African Americans from usually quite poor backgrounds. But so it was funny, but it was also, it was something I really want to make, because actually hip hop's been a really important part of my life, and like I've met a lot of people and continue to know a lot of people because of hip hop, and there's a real strong community and a sense of belonging, and that was really important to me. So I wrote a play and I wrote some music with a guy called Testament, and we did what's called an R&D, research and development. So we got funded to basically try out some ideas, record some music, hire some actors, hire a director. We had a producer, a sound engineer. We worked with venues. So we did one. What we call sharing, which is like a kind of proof of concept at the Playhouse, and then one at Slung Low. We also had a movement director as well, who's amazing. Clarny Crabtree. So the reason why I'm telling this is because just kind of show you the kind of thing. So I was able to kind of really bring my love of hip hop. I do a lot of theatre work as well, so it kind of combined both of those two things, which was brilliant. So my music and my theatre worlds kind of got to collide, and so so I was given around £25,000 to fund this project. So it's up. So project grants are around 30,000, and then they have what's over 30,000, um, which which is kind of, can't remember what the cap is for that, but it can, I think it's up to 100,000, but obviously they are very involved into. So what I mean by that is the application form for the under 30,000. It's apparently it's got better since I did it, which was last year. But it's so I'm dyslexic, and I a lot of time don't really feel very dyslexic. I looked at the form to apply for the project grant, and I felt very dyslexic. I was absolutely overwhelmed by the information on it. Uh, so it's very, very involved, but you can get support. So actually, the Arts Council do provide support for people, so you can get paid support to help. I was lucky because I had a really brilliant producer and director who have both had experience of applying for ACE funding and have been successful on numerous occasions. Um, but it was a really long process. Um, so around so it can take about 6 to 9 weeks for the under 30,000. So and actually it took 5 for mine, but which was quite a surprise. But yeah, but it can take up to 9 weeks. It's very competitive, so there's a lot of people going for Arts Council funding, and there's sort of a kind of a belief now that pretty much they will turn you down first time. Like there's just a kind of like first time you go in, they will just turn you down. Uh, that's not always the case, and in fact, my wife Andrea, she's just an R&D process, and she got first time, but then with her the her theatre company, Fidget Theatre, they've had to apply 4 times for this for funding. They finally got it on the 4th time. So it can really, really vary, and sometimes it can be anything up to there's just a lot of people applying, and other people were preferred. Um, but you have to make a very strong case for your work. You have to understand your project. You have to create a budget. You have to kind of demonstrate how you're spending that money, because obviously it is a significant amount of money they're giving you, and it is public money. So they are very, very keen on making sure they're giving it to the right people. So that's kind of project grants. So that's if you're kind of doing a project like I kind of said, or you're thinking about doing an interactive thing, or maybe an installation, or you're wanting, but I don't know, but I don't know a lot of artists who've like been funded to make an album. That's more PRS, PPL funding that would give you that. Project grants would probably do more, like I say, a project, which sounds really kind of a bit woolly. I'm so sorry about that. And then developing your creative practice. This is a really useful fund, and I know lots of my friends who've gone for this and received funding for it. So it's not about realizing a project. So if you're making an album, it's not just about finishing your album. It's about actually working on a new set of skills that will complement your current practice. So, for example, a friend of mine is a brilliant pianist and singer-songwriter, and his DYCP was about developing his skills with music tech, so he could both be a better producer and also implement that in his live shows. Because he was kind of not particularly, I mean, he had a bit of tech, but he wasn't really particularly confident on it. on it. And so he learned how to use, Ableton. He's learned how to mix. He learned how to kind of really involve Ableton within his live shows, so it could be more expanded and wider. Um, uh, they they basically have windows of for funding throughout the year, and it's up to £10,000. That money can pay you and also other practitioners. So you can't just have £10,000 for yourself, unfortunately. What they like is for you to pay for other people as well. So essentially, you spread the money around a bit. So you can pay yourself for developing your practice, but also if you kind of want to work with someone for like 3 days. I've worked on with people, so I worked with a lady called Katherine who is visually impaired, and we worked on music on how to use software, like kind of how to use software in an access form, music software, so she could edit and mix music. So there's been a wide range of successful local artists, so I know Maddie Morris, for example. They've just got funding. Who's a brilliant folk artist. Um, various other people I know who've had it, and really, both from music and theatre, who've really benefited from having it, because it allows you to kind of really implement what you're doing. My friend who's a writer and director, she got some DYCP for novel writing. So see what I mean? So it's kind of complementary skills, essentially. It's a way of developing your creative practice. So really quite a good name. They've actually thought about that one. Yeah, um, and very useful. So arts previously, previously funded artist stroke projects are publicly available, and you can filter them by art, so you can find out who's actually had funding. So it's kind of worth looking at what they've got. You have to use their Grantium funding portal, which I'm going to be really honest is a bit like a broken car. It works sometimes, and when it does, it's fine, but it's very rickety. You have to set up an account on Grantium, and then have it approved, and then once you've done that, you can then apply within their granting portal. I've actually put a put Grantham. Grantham's nice, it's fine. I've got no problem with Grantham as a place, but Grantium, it's called Grantium, not Grantham. Sorry, that's it messing with me. Um, Grantium is off. It's awful. It really is. I can't. I'd like to be nice about it, but it's terrible. And it has recently not been particularly good. It's been breaking down quite a lot. They've had so the Arts Council of England have had numerous outages over the past few months where it hasn't been available for people to use. So just be aware of it. But Arts Council England, they are a really good organisation. The people who work for them are brilliant, and the funding is invaluable. So you've got local and regional talent development partners. So obviously Launchpad, here we are. Hello. Come Play With Me, who are brilliant record label, and also do a lot of kind of talent development, sign artists and look after artists. Also do projects for underrepresented communities, and things like promoting and teaching skills how to promote and put on nights. Upper North do various projects as well. South Asian Arts are very active, and are actually brilliant as well. Huddersfield Contemporary Music Festival, which is like if you are making kind of music concrete or other more experimental music, then there is funding available from them to do projects. High Rhythm in Doncaster and the Warren Hall, which I don't really know about very much about, so I'm not going to pretend that I do. So local initiatives. So there's the West Yorkshire Music Network, which has come out of Tracy Braben, who actually also which from the mayoral office that we have in Yorkshire. There's also funding available through that pot, but to run projects, which my friend also received. But there's also kind of funding and opportunities available, and they do things. They do talks and meetings and conferences, and then there's kind of different, and these hubs and kind of collectives exist quite widely through Yorkshire's in Bradford, so and then Wakefield, South Yorkshire, and then there's the Yorkshire Sound Women Network, which is brilliant and like really active, and really great for particularly women who are on the technical side of things as well, because kind of historically, uh, music production and music mixing and using technology has been traditionally kind of men and male dominated. I'm really glad to say, as someone who works within, I teach 1 day a week at least Beckett, and that is definitely balancing out now. That is starting to change, which is brilliant to see. But Yorkshire Sound Women Network have some really fantastic women involved and who are doing really ace stuff. Um, so there's lots more available in different regions. And again, this is literally just kind of like a little overview on kind of what's going on. Okay. I'm not trying to say this is, detailed. Just kind of want to make people aware there's actually quite a lot out there. And I think once you kind of got especially if you've done something like a an arts council grant, which is really involved, like they are adaptable to other funding pots. So once you've done a big kind of funding pot, it's very easy to kind of adapt those and use them for other funding streams that are available. So many local authorities have small grants. Some will be non-specific. Some will allow development for artistic projects. So Leeds has a really has money available, and a lot of cities have cut their arts funding, but we're lucky that Leeds haven't, and they've sort of really, in fact, they've kind of ring fenced it a bit, and they see the commercial worth in it as well. It's light night tomorrow night and Friday night, and that's that's a lot of artists have been funded to create sound pieces and light pieces for that, and they know because thousands of people will flock to the centre of Leeds and spend money. There is commercial. There's an understanding in Leeds that there is commercial worth in art, which is brilliant. And I'm pleased about it. Obviously, more would be great. We'd love to have more money, but I mean, Leeds City Council generally probably need more money because government. But I'm not here to be political. I'm just going to take a drink right now because maybe that'll shut me up. I don't want to get controversial on other people's dime. Um, so yeah, but depending what area you're in, a lot of councils will have different funding pots for different projects, and sometimes that can be non-specific. So if it is a music project or a theatre project, or a creative project with young people or whatever that might be, it's kind of worth checking out. There's sometimes the only thing I will say is because it's council money, they're quite involved. The forms they can be pretty hefty, even though it's sometimes quite small amount of money, because again they're spending very public money that is very hard to get hold of, and they want they're held to high accountability at councils, and they need to make sure that any money they're spending they can account and justify, because they will be made to justify it. So all new funding opportunities are put on the Launchpad WhatsApp group. Now this is brand new and very exciting. So if you have your phones with you and aren't on it, you can scan this QR code now and join the Launchpad WhatsApp channel. And so Launchpad are really good at putting up new funding opportunities. So when the funding pots open, and you can check the website, but that's we all know what it's like checking websites. We're all a bit shit. But here you can find it now. The trick is with it is to turn on notifications. So apparently you have to press the little bell in the corner to turn on the notification. I feel like I'm on YouTube now. Turn on notifications, like or subscribe. Leave a comment, guys. Um, your details will be anonymous, and so no one can see who's a member of the group. It's a channel, so therefore people can't access your details, and yeah, if you join, it's anonymous, so people can't see who's a member or not. So if you're worried about kind of data protection or anything like that. I can see there's some questions, which is really hard to do when you're in a thing, but I'll do that in a minute. So before applying for funding, here's some sort of just better practice, sort of best practice. So I'm just gonna, oh gosh. So funding pots can change and refocus. Make sure you know what you're applying for. So sometimes they are one thing, but they become another, or they refocus, or so for example, the Let's Play initiative that's part of the Arts Council, that's relatively new, but uh, can be but it's kind of refocused about how you apply for things. So just make sure you know what you're applying for. It's not just, oh, look, there's some money, I'll just apply for that. It's like, make sure you know what that is and what the criteria is. Know why you are applying for the fund. So why are you applying for that particular fund? And that's really, really important. It's like, again, yes, money's good, but actually how will that money impact you for the criteria of that funding? Like, actually, is that really the right funding pot to go for? Are you at the stage, because you also don't want to be wasting time like applying for funding if you're definitely not going to get it. But so if you're going for the momentum fund, then are you at the point for that? Are you at the right stage in your career? So check you're eligible. Watch or read the application guides. So it's really worth looking at that, uh, and knowing what they want. Uh, you may be eligible for access support to help you through the application process, which I mentioned before with the Arts Council. But that is really important if you find, as a lot of people are do, filling application forms in very daunting and overwhelming. I certainly do. Like I find I will do anything to avoid filling out forms, like literally anything. And so if there's some way you can get support from that, then that's brilliant. So make sure that that if that is available to you, that you access that. If you can get someone to read through your application, and it's really daft, obvious thing to say, but it's actually really important. So if you know someone who has applied for the fund or has good knowledge of what that funding is, then uh, then it's worth doing. I don't know if this is the case, but uh, I don't know if Kieran can hear me, but I'm not sure if Launchpad will check through applications for you or not. I don't want to offer a service that isn't available. And they're like, no, Ed, we don't do that. We're already overworked.
We do sometimes. We always try to make um effort, but yeah, sometimes we're a lot more busy than usual. So I would say if you do want something or have something that you want us to read over, send it anyway, and we'll be open and honest whether we've got the capacity to do it. But it's better than uh not sending it, I guess.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kieran, the voice of Kieran, everyone. Um, Yeah, but definitely worth getting someone to kind of make sure it's clear, because that clarity is, because that people are reading these and they're reading a ton of them, so you need to be super clear. Like, and even things like headings and stuff are really important. Like, it's one of the things that I got taught was like make your headings really clear and obvious about what you're about to talk about, because if they're skimming it, be bullet pointy. Don't get dense. Don't start writing academic language. Make it clear, make it concise, but also get someone to read through it so they understand so they, if it's clear to them and they're not on the funding model, then hopefully it's going to be clear to people who do know what the funding is. Also, if you're terrible at spelling, like me, it's definitely worth doing as well. You never know, you might get someone who's like, a real like stickler for those semicolons. Um, be aware of the deadlines; they are non-negotiable. So that they're not, they are like absolutely like death, taxes, and funding applications are like things that are certain, like deadlines. They are certain. Yeah, you can't get in a day late or 2 days late. They will not allow it. This is largely because a lot of funding pots are oversubscribed, so they want a cutoff point because they want to stop the amount that's going to come in. Um, be patient. So decisions will take a while. It's horrible. The wait is terrible. And you will go through all I'm definitely going to get this to, I don't even know I'm going to get this. And you'll go through all the stages, and it's a joyous thing. By the way, I got a lot of this stuff, these kind of bits of best practice were given to me by Andrea, my wife, who's brilliant. Her success rate is ridiculous for getting funding. So like this is like best practice from someone who's really good at funding applications. Uh, be prepared to fail and resubmit. There is a big chance that sometimes you're not going to get it first time, but like a lot of funding pots, hopefully they'll give you some feedback, and resubmissions. Unless you're told otherwise. So sometimes you'll be told, listen, please don't resubmit, that you aren't eligible for this, or you're not right for this pot of funding. If they give you some feedback on why, then you can at least then look at those areas that need strengthening. And sometimes actually you can make a much stronger application after it's been rejected. I certainly feel like that was the case with my funding. So we got from turned down first time. Second, we went back and we reworked our application. I think it was a much stronger bid when it went in the second time. So it is, it's not always a negative thing. Um, so if you apply for, say, launch some of the Launchpad funding, you might get turned down first time, but it might be because you're not quite ready, or that they were. Sometimes it's just because there are people who they feel are more ready. That doesn't mean that in 6 months, when the application process opens again, that you won't be right that next time. So please don't get disheartened. Unfortunately, this is the business we work in. Is that there's a lot of no's in this business, and we kind of have to get quite thick-skinned about it, which is really, really difficult. So I've kind of ripped through this quite quickly, but I'm sure everyone's quite pleased with that. There is some questions.